Today we're doing a 100-hour service on this generator, and these are a lot of the things that you'll need. A pair of gloves is a good idea, some towels or maybe some paper towels. Also, the stock spark plug wrench actually works incredibly well, so you did receive a toolkit with this. So this is something you'll need, along with also a spark plug gap tool to make sure you check the gap is correct. And I'll show a link of that down in the description below, but there is some other things like a little 5/16 socket, pair of pliers, a couple bristle brushes, a cordless drill does make things a little bit quicker. This little extraction pump, I'll show you that shortly. And this little torch, we don't really need this, but it is kind of fun. I'll show you what we use that for later. Have your manual out as well, because you may want to make some notes. And something you don't exactly need, but this does come in handy, is some dielectric grease. I'll have a link of this down below. And then also a plastic bag, which we will use this for our air filter later. Now you will want to run your generator for about 10 minutes. This will make draining the oil a lot easier, which is where we are going to start. So pop off the side door. I'm not going to use this because we're going to use that little oil extractor. This you have to lift the generator up and tilt it, which is a little bit tougher. Now you do want to become familiar with your generator's oil level. It should normally be full or where you placed it last time depending on the hours. This lets you know just the running condition, but this little oil extractor is amazing. I've been using this now for a few months. Check this out. You simply put it in there, you suck out the oil, boom, you are done. And now you'll just put this in the waste container, but you can also see how much came out of this so you can make your measurements. Now before putting this into the waste container, go ahead and measure it just to make sure you got about 16 to 17 ounces out, because that's how much you will fill this up. As your generator does use 16.9, but don't put all of it in as it already has some residual left over. Now when it comes to your oil, just a 5W30 is all you need, and it can be fully or semi-synthetic. The manual does call for fully synthetic, and it doesn't have to be any name brand. It's really about frequency and changing it often. And if the oil was warmed up, this would be a little bit easier to extract, as it is about 55 degrees out right now, so the oil is pretty cold. But one thing that's nice about this oil extractor is that when you are filling it up, since you can still see inside the hole, this allows you to visually see it and not overfill it. And plus, since you've already marked it out, it'll actually fill up right to the bottom of the threads or about halfway up the threads, and then boom, you're going to be done. And here, take a look at this. As soon as you put in all the oil, just pull it out slow as it will drip a little bit. And now, as you can see, the oil is right at the mark where we need it at, and boom, we're done. This makes it super simple. So go ahead and put in your oil dipstick, then we'll close this door and move on to the spark plug and air filter. Now this is where the cordless drill does come in a little bit quicker, as it does just need a Phillips screwdriver, but we will do the spark plug next. Now that stock tool that does come with this generator works really well, or you can use a 13/16 spark plug deep socket. Now when utilizing this little tool, just put the bar in far enough. This gives you more leverage to break loose that spark plug. And one thing about your spark plug, it tells a lot about how your generator is running. What you're mainly looking for is a toast brown. If it's black, that means you're either burning oil or it's running really rich. Now this one's white because it does run on propane, so it doesn't have a lot of color yet, and it does run cleaner. One problem I do have though is these torch plugs. I do not have great luck with these. I always change them out to an NGK as they just start better. I will leave a link of which ones you need for this down in the description. Now when it comes to setting your spark plug gap, you should check this right out of the box, because I have seen some that are perfectly set and other ones are not. You're going to want to put this at 28 to 31 thousandths per the spec of this generator. This one is about 27 thousandths, which isn't bad. You just slightly open it up and then you can just slide it to about 30. But if you are going to use this on propane only, about 20 thousandths is where you want to be with that spark plug gap. A tighter gap while using propane will help promote better starting and usually a little bit better running conditions. So we're going to close this up a little bit, and the lightest little taps are all you need. Then we'll go ahead and check it again to see if it's kind of closed down. Now what you want this is to be able to just slide on there a little bit. As you can see right here, it goes on. We're about 21, 22. I'm going to go ahead and tap this down one more time to where it just barely wants to fit on there. And that's about all you need. Now this is only, again, if you're going to run propane only, which is what I do with this generator. This one never sees gas. So here is another tip, is make sure the spark plug doesn't fall out depending on which wrench you're using. And if you turn the spark plug wrench counterclockwise, this will help seat the threads, and this way you don't strip it. This is the worst place to strip anything, as this can really damage your generator and make a nightmare out of having to replace the head. Now I am using the same spark plug just for video purposes, but normally you would take this and move it a quarter turn to crush the crush washer, and then it would be fully seated. Since this one's already been crushed, you're only going to get about a 1/16 of a turn out of it, and then we can go ahead and put this back on. But this is where that dielectric grease might make your job a little easier later, is by adding a little bit to the inside of that rubber boot. When the spark plug does get really hot, sometimes these can kind of get stuck to the spark plug itself. You only need just a little dab, put some on your finger, and then just kind of go ahead and wipe it around in there just to kind of create a slick surface. This will allow the spark plug boot to slide on easier, and also when you go to service it later, it'll pop off a lot easier as well, and not having to create maybe kind of that knuckle buster situation. So now onto the air filter. Now this unit, being relatively new, doesn't have a lot of hours, and this is something you could inspect because some of these air filters are supposed to be pre-oiled, but if you look at this one, it's actually got a very, very thin coating of oil on it. Some of them I have seen completely bone dry. Now when it comes to washing this, Dawn dish soap and some hot water makes a quick job out of this, and then you'll want to let it air dry before we start to add our oil, which this is where that little sandwich bag comes in handy. You're just going to take about a teaspoon to maybe 2 teaspoons, go ahead and place it inside the bag, and now you're going to just kind of smash the bag around to create a coating on both sides of the plastic. This will make sure that it gets distributed evenly. That way when we put in the filter, you don't want to saturate the filter, you're just coating the outside of it. Now go ahead and place the filter inside the bag, and then just kind of rub it around in there, pat it some so it gets kind of into the filter. Make sure you get the edges as well, that way it can't sneak around the dust. You don't want it to kind of sneak through the edges and pass through, so that's why we want to get a nice little coat of oiling all the way around the filter and just slightly inside of it. And then as you can see, now it's all over my gloves, and so we get a nice little coating and it's ready to be installed again. And again, you can see the oil that's on my gloves now, but when installing this filter, this one is basically a square. You can put it in either direction, there is no difference. And when installing the door, make sure this hooks onto the bottom. That way this is actually placed all the way and the air is flowing through the correct direction and it's not trying to sneak its way around. But you can see if you hook it, it's not going to come up, and then you can go ahead and just snap it back into place. And then you're going to work on your carburetor hoses and make sure these are just kind of hooked back up into their little position and also placed into the little holes that are at the bottom of the generator. Now when it comes to your valves, there's always something to be said about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If your generator runs fine, it starts easy, it doesn't backfire, then there's no reason to take this apart and check it. If it does make a rattle or it doesn't start, then it is time to do a valve inspection and also adjust them. Now there is one other thing to check, is a fuel valve filter, which it does have an asterisk, meaning it may not be there, but you can check your fuel strainer and make sure this is clear of any debris. Now inside the tank there is also another fuel strainer that's finer, as you can see here at the bottom of the fuel tank. Now one thing I noticed is I didn't see an inline pancake filter kind of anywhere around here. If you go over to the other side where the fuel selector switch is, which you can't really see it on this side, so if we go to the other side, you can see back in here, you can't really see a filter anywhere else. I kind of inspected everywhere I could and I didn't see another one. So this means it didn't really have an inline filter. So basically you're just going to be cleaning the screens. Onto the spark arrestor. Now this is where you might need a little socket or a wrench because some of these bolts are sometimes a little tight. This is just a little 5/16, so I'm going to go ahead and break them loose, then get the cordless back out, and then this is where it just saves maybe a few seconds, but don't drop any of those because they can get lost back there. Now this is our little exit screen or kind of a spark arrestor screen, and this is the actual spark arrestor. Now again, this is actually pretty clean because it mainly runs on propane, and that's one of the benefits of propane is you don't get a lot of carbon buildup and soot, so you're not going to have to really service this part as much. Now when it comes to cleaning this, all you need is a bristle brush. You can use kind of a medium to soft. I have this one as an example, or you can even use a toothbrush if it's not very dirty, but this isn't very fun. This is fun, using a torch, and it makes quick work out of it. Check this out. Just take this and start burning this, and if there was a lot of carbon deposits on here, it would burn right off in seconds, and this is just a lot more fun and cool. So check it out. As it heats up, it's burning all the carbon deposits right off. Now you are playing with fire, so you want to be careful and maybe do this outside so you're not inhaling any fumes, but look at the results. Super clean inside and out, and now that's as clean as it gets, and it's basically brand new. Go ahead and pop that back into place, and it is still going to be a little warm, so be careful. And the last one we're going to do is that little after screen or spark arrestor screen as well. And why not use a torch again, because this just makes it at least a little bit more interesting, and who doesn't love playing with fire? Ooh, look at that, super clean. Now we can go ahead and start working on putting this back together. Be careful, it is going to be hot, and now go ahead and put in these 2 screws, and this will basically complete this job. And I'll give you one more little tip before I go. Now, if you don't use your generator all the time and you do use gasoline, something like a fuel conditioner or a stabilizer is always a good idea. Not only that, it helps keep the combustion chamber and your valves cleaner, and when it comes to starting your generator, it'll make it easier if you let your generator sit for longer periods of time because the fuel is treated from the ethanol that happens to be in it. So I hope this video helped you guys out. If you have any questions, there's a link down below, and I hope to see you in the next video.